It started with a simple phone call. One voice, one moment of trust, and Clorox's digital fortress fell. Not by code, but by human deception. Operations halted, millions lost, trust shattered. The real threat? A believable voice, and a story designed to manipulate. The Clorox company, trusted for generations, faced an unprecedented breach in August 2023. A simple phone call, a fake employee, and a missed protocol opened the door to a notorious cybercrime group. Exploiting trust, they infiltrated Clorox's systems, moving silently and undetected, setting the stage for chaos. One moment of human error changed everything. The Clorox company is a global giant, trusted for over a century. Its digital fortress protects vast operations, but even the strongest chain has a weak link. When attackers exploited a routine help desk process, the Titan was brought to its knees. The attack began not with code, but with a simple, deceptive phone call. An attacker posed as a Clorox employee, urgently requesting a password reset. Security protocols should have stopped them. Multi-factor authentication, strict verification. But the agent bypassed these steps. In minutes the attacker had valid credentials, an open door into Clorox's network. The success of this breach rested entirely on the exploitation of a universal vulnerability: human nature. The attackers, identified as the social engineering specialists of the Scattered Spider Group, understood this better than anyone. Their entire modus operandi is built not on hacking systems, but on hacking people. They are masters of psychological manipulation, skilled in crafting narratives of urgency, authority, or distress that compel their targets to bypass their training and ignore security protocols. They know that a help desk employee is trained to be helpful and that under pressure, the path of least resistance is often to fulfill a request quickly rather than adhering to a cumbersome verification process. This strategy is, honestly, alarmingly effective because it circumvents technology altogether. No amount of encryption or firewall complexity can stop an employee who is convinced they are helping a colleague in need. Scattered Spider often engages in what is known as vishing, or voice phishing, using phone calls to establish a direct personal connection with their target. They might feign panic, claiming they are locked out of their account right before a critical meeting, thereby creating a sense of urgency that pressures the agent to act swiftly. This tactic preys on the innate human desire to be cooperative and efficient, turning an employee's best intentions into a security liability. The failure at the Cognizant help desk was a textbook example of this manipulation in action. It highlighted a critical gap between security policy and real-world practice. While a company may have stringent rules written down in a manual, those rules are only effective if they are consistently and unflinchingly enforced by every single employee, every single time. The moment an exception is made, the entire system is compromised. The Clorox breach demonstrated that the human element, particularly in an outsourced environment where employees may feel less connected to the client's security culture, can easily become the weakest link in the defense chain. This incident serves as a chilling case study in the dangers of complacency. For the help desk agent, it was likely one of dozens of calls handled that day. The request seemed routine, and the path to resolving it was simple. Yet that simple, non-compliant action had catastrophic repercussions. It really underscores the critical need for continuous, rigorous training that goes beyond procedural checklists. Employees must be conditioned to treat every request for access with a healthy dose of skepticism, understanding that they are not just customer service agents, but frontline defenders in a constant battle against sophisticated adversaries who see them as the easiest way in. Once the attackers gained their initial foothold, they did not launch an immediate noisy assault. Instead, they began a phase of silent, methodical infiltration. Using the compromised credentials, they logged into the Clorox network, appearing as just another employee going about their daily tasks. Their first objective was to expand their access and burrow deeper into the corporate infrastructure without being detected. This process, known as lateral movement, is a hallmark of advanced persistent threats. The attackers moved quietly from system to system, exploring the network architecture, identifying high-value targets, and escalating their privileges along the way. Their movements were deliberate and patient. They sought out administrative accounts, critical servers storing sensitive financial data, and the systems that controlled Clorox's vast manufacturing and supply chain operations. With each new system they accessed, they harvested more credentials, creating multiple backdoors and ensuring their access would persist even if the original compromised account was discovered and disabled. During this critical period, which may have lasted for days, the company's security systems remained silent. The attackers' activity was cloaked by the legitimacy of the accounts they were using, making it exceedingly difficult for automated threat detection tools to distinguish their malicious actions from normal network traffic. While moving through the network, the intruders began to disable the very tools designed to stop them. They systematically turned off security alerts, tampered with logging mechanisms, and deployed malware that would help them maintain control and exfiltrate data. They were not just invading the network, they were actively dismantling its defenses from the inside out. This careful, calculated approach was designed to pave the way for the final stage of their attack, ensuring that when they did decide to strike, Clorox's ability to respond would be severely hampered. The company was completely unaware that a hostile takeover of its digital nervous system was in progress. This silent invasion phase is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the breach. For an unknown period, Clorox was operating under the illusion of security, while its most critical assets were being mapped, cataloged, and controlled by a malicious actor. The single error at the help desk had not just unlocked a door, it had allowed a saboteur to walk freely through the halls, planting digital explosives at the foundations of the company. The breach was no longer a simple matter of a compromised account. It had evolved into a full-blown network compromise, setting the stage for the operational chaos that was about to be unleashed. The Clorox attack wasn't random. It was orchestrated by Scattered Spider, a notorious social engineering group. Masters of deception, they bypassed advanced defenses by targeting people, not just systems. Their hands-on, persistent tactics exploit human trust, turning employees into unwitting accomplices. The breach proved the greatest threat often understands people, not just technology. The Clorox breach began with a vishing call. An attacker, sounding like a stressed employee, convinced the help desk to skip multi-factor authentication. Using caller ID spoofing and urgent pretexts, the social engineer exploited a culture of helpfulness, bypassing security with a single call. The art of vishing is turning people and procedures into vulnerabilities, often without leaving a trace. Gaining initial access was just the beginning. For Scattered Spider, this foothold allowed them to move laterally, quietly exploring, escalating privileges, and targeting domain controllers. They blended in, harvesting credentials and creating hidden accounts, ensuring persistence. Clorox remained unaware as attackers turned its own network into a launchpad for a devastating breach. Scattered Spider didn't just break into Clorox, they dismantled defenses from within. Disabling antivirus, corrupting logs, and targeting backups, they blinded security teams and stripped away recovery options. When the ransomware hit, Clorox was left paralyzed, unable to respond, turning a breach into a full-blown crisis. With the internal defenses neutralized and widespread access secured, Scattered Spider entered the final preparatory phase of their attack. They strategically placed their malicious payloads, setting the triggers for a coordinated shutdown. The AL-PHV ransomware was deployed across the network in a dormant state, ready to be activated on command, causing maximum disruption. The entire organization would be hit at once, overwhelming response efforts. Attackers also focused on data exfiltration, copying sensitive Clorox data. This included intellectual property, financial records, and employee information. The tactic, known as double extortion, added pressure on Clorox. They could lock systems and threaten to leak data if the ransom wasn't paid. This raised the stakes, turning a disruption into a regulatory and PR nightmare. Attackers meticulously planned the timing of their final strike. They often activate ransomware during off hours, like late on a Friday night. This takes advantage of reduced IT staffing and slower response times. By Monday morning, employees would find ransomware notes and encrypted files. The goal was to create chaos and panic, leaving the company scrambling. The digital infrastructure was thoroughly compromised, defenses stripped away. Attackers moved from a deceptive phone call to absolute power within the network. They were poised to halt Clorox's factories and freeze supply chains. The stage was set for an operational catastrophe. The trap, weeks in the making, was about to be sprung. The moment of impact was a creeping systemic paralysis spreading through Clorox's digital nervous system. Systems began to fail, and employees arriving for their shifts noticed immediately. They were met with cryptic error messages and chilling digital ransom notes. The attackers had sprung their trap. The ransomware began encrypting decades of corporate data. Communication systems were among the first casualties. Employees and management were isolated, unable to coordinate a response. The tools needed to manage the disaster were locked away. The attack reached deep into Clorox's operational technology environment, severing connections and blinding the company to its own operations. For the IT and security teams, it was a corporate nightmare. The digital lights had gone out, plunging Clorox into unprecedented digital darkness. The digital chaos quickly manifested in the physical world, bringing Clorox's manufacturing to a grinding halt. Production lines fell silent, and the software controlling every process was rendered useless. Managers and workers were left cut off from central systems, unable to know what to make or how. The entire supply chain broke down, with raw materials piling up and trucks waiting at empty docks. Each silent factory meant millions lost daily. A digital attack turned into an industrial catastrophe. When Clorox's factories went dark, the impact rippled nationwide. Supply chains broke, warehouses stalled, and shelves emptied. Retailers scrambled as shoppers faced out-of-stock signs. Competitors filled the void, and headlines spread the crisis. The breach wasn't just a business problem, it shattered trust, leaving millions without the products they relied on. Inside the besieged headquarters of Clorox, the initial response was a frantic scramble against a sophisticated and invisible enemy. With their primary communication and operational systems crippled, executives and the incident response team were forced to operate in a state of controlled chaos. They had to rebuild their ability to communicate and coordinate from the ground up, reportedly resorting to personal cell phones, third-party messaging apps, and emergency in-person meetings. They were cut off from their own infrastructure, trying to lead a global corporation through its worst-ever crisis while effectively locked out of their own digital offices. The attackers had successfully isolated them, making every decision and action incredibly difficult. The first priority was to understand the scope and nature of the attack, a task made nearly impossible by the attackers' deliberate sabotage. The IT teams, working alongside external cybersecurity consultants who were quickly brought in, began the arduous process of digital forensics. They had to painstakingly analyze compromised systems, search for remnants of logs that hadn't been deleted, and try to piece together the attacker's trail through the network. It was like investigating a crime scene where the culprits had not only wiped their fingerprints but also burned the building down on their way out. Every discovery was hard-won, slowly revealing the devastating extent of Scattered Spider's infiltration and control. Containment was another immediate and critical challenge. The security teams had to assume that the entire network was compromised. The drastic but necessary decision was made to take many of its systems offline intentionally. This included shutting down servers, disconnecting plants from the network, and isolating various business units to prevent the ransomware from spreading any further. While this action stopped the bleeding, it also deepened the operational paralysis. The company was forced to inflict further damage upon itself to prevent an even greater catastrophe, a bitter pill to swallow for a business built on non-stop operational uptime and reliability. Publicly, the company was forced into a difficult balancing act. It had a legal obligation to disclose the material impact of the cyber attack to its investors, but it needed to do so without causing widespread panic or revealing security details that could be exploited further. The initial public statements were carefully worded, acknowledging unauthorized activity and the resulting disruption to business operations. Behind this corporate language, however, a monumental battle was being waged. Clorox was fighting in the dark, not just to restore its systems, but to reclaim control of its own destiny from the anonymous attackers who had brought it to a standstill. As Clorox's operations ground to a halt, the financial hemorrhage was immediate and severe. With production stopped, millions in sales evaporated daily, and the company's stock price plunged, erasing billions in market value. The costs of recovery, cybersecurity experts' IT rebuilds, and lost market share quickly soared into the tens of millions. Clorox's final tally, a staggering $380 million in damages, encompassing not just lost sales but brand damage and long-term recovery. The attack proved that a single security lapse can devastate a company's finances overnight. The fake phone call had triggered a financial crisis that would haunt Clorox for years. In the aftermath, Clorox sought accountability, filing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Cognizant, its IT partner. The suit accused Cognizant of gross negligence and breach of contract, blaming them for the catastrophic password reset that enabled the attack. Clorox argued that Cognizant's failure to follow basic security protocols directly led to the disaster. This rare public lawsuit sent shockwaves through the IT outsourcing industry, warning vendors they could be held liable for security failures. For Clorox, the legal battle was about more than money. It was about proving the fault lay with their partner, not their own security strategy. The stage was set for a high-stakes legal showdown. The world watched as two corporate giants prepared to battle over the true cost of a cyber breach. Clorox's lawsuit painted a picture of systemic failure at Cognizant, not just a single mistake. The complaint detailed how Cognizant ignored security protocols, no multi-factor authentication, no alerts, and a slow, confused response. Even after the breach, compromised credentials remained active, giving attackers continued access. Clorox argued these failures compounded the damage, turning a breach into a $380 million catastrophe. The case was clear. Cognizant's negligence wasn't just a vulnerability, it was an active contributor to the disaster. The lawsuit became a warning to every company relying on third-party IT support. The Clorox-Cognizant dispute exposed the hidden dangers of outsourcing critical IT functions. While outsourcing promises efficiency, it can create dangerous gaps in security culture and accountability. Help desk agents, incentivized to resolve tickets quickly, may cut corners on security. opening the door to attackers. The breach forced companies everywhere to rethink vendor oversight, demanding rigorous audits and zero-trust policies. Ultimately, when a partner fails, the client bears the reputational and financial scars. The lesson? Your security is only as strong as your weakest and most distant link. As Clorox fought in court, it faced an even tougher battle for public trust. Empty shelves and product shortages shattered its reputation for reliability, driving customers to competitors. The breach raised doubts about Clorox's competence, with investors and partners questioning its resilience. Rebuilding trust would require more than technical fixes. It demanded transparency, security reforms, and a renewed commitment to reliability. The financial losses were massive, but the damage to brand and consumer loyalty was incalculable. The Clorox incident proved, in today's world, cybersecurity failures are brand failures. The final invoice for this single security lapse was staggering. Clorox reported a $380 million loss from the cyber attack, an amount reflecting lost revenue, emergency IT costs, legal fees, and long-term damage to brand and shareholder value. This catastrophic expense is a stark warning. The cost of prevention is tiny compared to the price of failure. The Clorox disaster proves people are the true front line of cybersecurity. Attackers don't need to hack technology. They exploit human nature. Security isn't just about firewalls. It's about empowering every employee, from CEO to intern, to recognize and resist social engineering. The future of defense is transforming people from the weakest link into our strongest asset. The Clorox case shows zero trust must go beyond networks and devices. It must apply to people too. Every request, email, chat, or call should be treated with suspicion, verified by strict protocols. AI and biometrics can help flag suspicious behavior and verify identity, protecting against social engineering. In today's world, trust must be earned. Every human interaction is a potential risk until proven safe. The Clorox breach, traced to Cognizant, shows that vendors are now a direct extension of your security perimeter. You can outsource the function, but not the risk. The onus is on companies to demand proof, monitor relentlessly, and treat the supply chain as part of the security team, because accountability is no longer optional. The final and perhaps most sobering lesson from the Clorox cyber disaster is one of inevitability. The question for any modern organization is not if it will be targeted by a sophisticated social engineering attack, but when. The tactics used by Scattered Spider are highly effective, easily scalable, and incredibly difficult to defend against with technology alone. As long as organizations are run by humans, there will always be a vulnerability for attackers to exploit. Therefore, while prevention is critical, preparedness for a successful breach is equally, if not more, important. What separates a crisis from a catastrophe is the speed and effectiveness of the response after the initial intrusion occurs. This requires having a detailed, tested, and resilient incident response plan that specifically accounts for a widespread social engineering-based compromise. This plan must operate on the assumption that primary communication channels like email and internal messaging will be unavailable. It needs to establish out-of-band communication methods, define a clear chain of command, and pre-authorize critical decisions, such as taking entire systems offline to contain a threat. This plan cannot be a document that sits on a shelf. It must be pressure-tested through realistic, full-scale simulations that involve executives, IT, legal, and communications teams, ensuring everyone knows their role when the real crisis hits. Investment in recovery capabilities is non-negotiable. The Clorox incident highlights the importance of having secure, air-gapped, and immutable backups that attackers cannot find and delete. A company's ability to recover its data and systems without paying a ransom is its single greatest point of leverage in a ransomware attack. This means not only having the backups but also regularly testing the restoration process to ensure it works, and to understand how long it will take to get critical business functions back online. Knowing your recovery time objective is a crucial piece of information that will guide every decision made during the chaos of an attack. In the end, the story of the fake call that crippled Clorox is a warning shot to every board of directors and every C-suite executive. It is a powerful reminder that in our interconnected world, operational resilience is the ultimate competitive advantage. Companies must foster a culture of hypervigilance, assume they are already compromised, and build their defenses and response plans accordingly. The next fake call is already being dialed. The only question that remains is whether your organization will be prepared to answer it without everything coming crashing down around you, or if you will become the next cautionary tale.